We are live.
We're live. Hello, everybody. This is Katie.
Hi, I'm Shannon.
We're from Greater Androscoggin Humane Society. And Shannon, what week is it?
It is Pet Poison Prevention Week.
Pet Poison Prevention Week.
I've been practicing how to say that.
It's a bit of a mouthful.
It is.
But it's really important.
Yes, absolutely.
Anyone who has a cat or a dog or a bird or a bunny, you know, if they're getting into something and you're like, oh my goodness, what did you eat? It can be heart-stopping. You're like, what in the world are you eating right now?
Absolutely.
And it's really serious.
It can be. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I know me, I get so nervous when I hear them wrestling with something or I hear something and I'm like, no, that's not the treat bag, or what are they trying to get into? Mm-hmm. I have 2 cats and a dog at home, and one is extremely mischievous and will get into anything. So I have to be very careful of what I have kind of around the house.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And that's what we'll be talking about today. It's just some common tips, ideas, common pet poisons or things that are toxic and that animals shouldn't eat, just to give you all some information to hopefully avoid having this happen to your dog or cat or small animal.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we also want to give you guys some tips for what you should do if your pet does come into contact with something and you know what it is or you don't know. I'll give you some ideas for that as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So maybe, I know we love the ASPCA here at Greater Androscoggin Humane, and they have a lot of great information. Absolutely. They have a 24-hour-a-day pet poison helpline. Mm-hmm. So that's something we always recommend. And there are others out there, and we'll give you information of what those are. But, you know, if you are in a panic and all of a sudden something's going wrong and you need to reach out and you don't necessarily have a vet on speed dial, it's a great option to be able to get information to say, yes, you should seek veterinary care, or, oh, we've got little girl in the background. She's climbing. She's saying hello as well.
She is. And she's like, what is up here?
We'll make sure that she's not eating anything in that pile that she shouldn't be eating as well.
Well, so that's something funny, because I was just going to say, I think that those are bags ready for our pet pantry that we do on Tuesdays. Yep. But she's on prescription food. So even that for her is something that she would need to say, that even though that's not a toxic item, it is something that she shouldn't be getting into. Absolutely. So luckily we do have those in secure containers, but she just wanted to be, I guess this is kind of like a photo bomb or a Zoom bomb. I think
she is, yes.
Absolutely. She's pretty cute. She's scheduled to get adopted this afternoon as long as the meet and greet goes well. Yay. So she wanted her turn at stardom before she goes.
Oh my goodness. So we were talking about the ASPCA, and I brought them up because they just published their 2020 data on what were the top 10 pet poisons that they saw throughout the year during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. So people were home more, people were spending time with their animals, and there were definitely some changes from past years of the sort of thing that they started seeing coming up. And I thought we could do kind of our top 10 in reverse. And count them down.
I was just going to say, I feel like it'd be nice if we had like a, we should have made it like a game show. Maybe next time we'll have to think of something fun like that.
Yes. So number 10, so coming in kind of at the bottom of the most frequent suspects was garden products.
So fertilizers, plant food.
Things like, sprays to kill weeds, I'm thinking. Fertilizer, certainly. It's certainly tempting when you're gardening and it's spring and plants are popping up, especially your dogs or your cats going out and digging in the fresh soil, maybe eating, like the different, just kind of like chewing on some things and getting that product in their mouths.
Absolutely.
Or if something spills in your garage and they're checking it out. I mean, there's numerous ways that they could be ingesting things like that aren't good for them. And typically, we're going to know, hopefully, that they're doing it, but I always worry if you're walking your dog and someone's has a new garden.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's a really good point. Yep. I know even when we've sprayed, this kind of gets on to, I'll do this. So number 9 is insecticides. Okay. And I was just going to say, I know in our we live like in a townhouse, and I know that our landlord, they always check with us because they know our dog goes outside. So they always let us know if they're going to be spraying something, even though they're getting pet safe products. Still, it's different between being like in like non-toxic versus edible. That's a difference.
Yes.
And even some of those pet safe products, still, they should not be ingesting them. But if they come in contact, so definitely always be mindful of that. But I never really thought about walking in her going onto other people's yards.
Yeah, just
that's a really smart thing.
What they used on their lawn. I mean, it's just interesting to think about what they could be coming into contact with.
Yeah, there's so many things that you can't control yourself. So just making sure you're always kind of aware of things. Yeah, that's really good.
So you said number 9, insecticide. Yeah. Number 8. So I'm seeing a theme here. Number 8 is plants. So we know the holiday coming up, Easter. Number 1 out of plants for ASPCA was lilies and cats. So lilies are extremely toxic to cats. And I think it's, let me see.
Poinsettias are up there too. I know around Christmas there's a lot of things always. And those are, I know as a child, my mom always, you went to someone's house around Easter, you brought them an Easter lily. Well, if you have a cat, if they have a cat, hands down, just don't even bring it in the house because it is extremely toxic to your cat.
Yeah, so it says severe kidney failure can result, even if they're just eating a few petals. And I've got cats who love to eat plants.
Oh, absolutely.
The minute a plant is in the house at my place, they're checking it out. They're trying to chew off a leaf. They're doing all that. And even the pollen from lilies can be toxic to cats.
I know my cat, one day she had some yellow on her face and I was like, what is that? And I hadn't even thought, and my sister had flowers. It was not a lily. But I thought she had maybe chewed on a marker. I didn't know what it was. And it was the pollen. So they just rubbing up against something, they're coming in contact with that.
Yep. They're breathing it in. They're licking it off themselves if they come into contact with it. Yeah.
If you're bringing my piece of advice, those of you who, if you guys know me, I work at the front desk here. I don't handle the animals. My training is not in animal care, but I'm a pet owner. My advice to you as a fellow pet owner, always check and do a little research if you're going to bring a new plant into your home. I have lots of friends who have lots of plants, but they have pets and they just always are checking to see, if it's a plant they're not familiar with, just checking and seeing.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of great, ASPCA has a whole list. It's very long. But if you want to see the plant that you're thinking of getting or you got as a gift or something, you can go on that list and you can see exactly, is it okay? Is it toxic? What's the situation? So that's a really handy way to double check on that. And just thinking of spring, even daffodils and tulips are also toxic if they're eating the bulbs. So I'm thinking as people are gardening, you've got a dog who's like, oh, the soil is great. They're digging through the soil. They eat a bulb.
Or a cat who sees them in your thing and they want to play with it. I mean, how often did your cat knock around something that is small?
Absolutely. So certainly, they're going to be eating probably more than a couple, but that can cause vomiting, diarrhea, abdominal pain. So anything like that, you just got to be really aware of what they're eating and what they're playing with. Yeah. Plants can be really, really challenging.
Something else too, kind of along those insecticide, rodenticide. How do you say? I struggled with that rodenticide. So rat poisons. Yeah. And I know that every year the ASPCA puts out information. And I did see at one point they did a breakdown by state. And again, in 2019, rat poison was the number 1 toxin here in Maine that pets were coming in contact with. Yeah. So that is just, I think that's kind of a fairly common sense thing to imagine. It's a poison, keep it away. Yeah. But just always be aware, especially if you're moving into a new apartment. I know I had a friend that had that happen. Yeah. She didn't realize in the storage unit that there was rat poison and her dog was running around as she was moving boxes. Oh no. And they were able to call the emergency clinic, get some advice, and then bring him in to be seen, and he was okay. But she's like, I didn't put it there, so I didn't know about it. So just be aware of where your pet's hanging out.
Absolutely. So moving on, so that was number 7. Number 6 is household products. So certainly with people being home more, people doing around the house projects, this is things like paint thinner, like spackle, things that are, you're part of your home improvement, but might smell good to a dog or a cat, and they're tasting it. Anything like that they're ingesting, that came in as number 6.
Probably cleaning products too falls under that.
Cleaning products, I would think, yeah. Yep. Yeah, so we never know. I mean, just looking at trying to use pet safe or non-toxic cleaning. But again, always being aware, like even if it says non-toxic,
that doesn't mean edible.
Drink everything.
Yes, exactly.
Like, drinking a whole bottle of kitchen cleaner is not going to be good.
Correct. Well, after that comes veterinary products. And that could be kind of like some of your over-the-counter medications or just even your prescription meds for your pets. Yeah. Like, did they get a whole sleeve of heartworm medication? Are they getting into food that is not designed for them, like a prescription food that you have for another pet or something like that? So that could really be anything that is pet-related for their care, but not designed to be consumed in the manner that they consumed it.
Yeah. Especially, we're thinking like, HeartGuard and NexGuard we use here, they're made to be edible. They're like a treat, I mean, they taste good to the dog or the cat if you're having that. It's no wonder that they get into it and they're like, oh, I'm going to eat the whole thing.
Yeah.
They don't know that it's medicine. It just tastes good.
I'm so happy that my dog likes her HeartGuard because it makes it easy to give it to her every month.
Exactly.
But I would be very concerned if she ate a whole sleeve.
Yes, and rightly so.
Yeah.
So moving on, number 4, and it's interesting that you mentioned the map showing like which poison is top in each state, because number 4 is chocolate.
And it's everywhere.
It's everywhere on this map that we're looking at. Let's see if we can show it to you.
And this is right on the ASPCA's website. But you can see this orange, this like darker orange coral color. All of that is the number one toxin was chocolate.
And it's interesting, I found, if you look, so all the New England and Northeast states, it's all chocolate. And then Maine is rodenticides. So we're doing something different up here because everyone else, maybe we're not eating much chocolate. I don't know.
Or maybe we are eating it all, and therefore there's none for the pets to eat. Maybe that's probably more likely.
That's probably it. But this is, obviously it tastes good. So dogs especially want to eat it. But the dark chocolates, the baker's chocolate, the higher concentrations of cocoa are the ones that are the most dangerous to animals. Yeah. If your dog eats an M&M, chances are things are going to be fine, but you have to think about the type and the amount. But certainly this is a common one because we just have it, it's in our houses.
How many of you have children that are going to have Easter baskets soon? And you think there is a giant chocolate bunny, lots of bright colored little objects that are going to be attractive to a pet, regardless if they know what's inside that packaging. So that's something to definitely be aware of if you have children and pets, or you just want maybe I should get my husband an Easter basket, but I'll make sure that my cats and dog can't get to those goodies.
Yeah, it's very true. When I was little, my mother tells me the story. I was young. I had an Easter basket, and our dog helped herself to it before I woke up that day and ate all the chocolate. And we had to go to the veterinarian, make sure she was okay, and she was. But they certainly do like it.
They do. And as for things they like, human food. So there obviously are lots of foods that are absolutely safe to give your pet. We actually have a great resource in our resources page that gives you a chart of some suggestions of things that you can feed your pet safely and things to definitely avoid. I think many of us know, those artificial sweeteners like xylitol are very toxic to pets. Things like onions, garlic, grapes, raisins, anything like that. You definitely want to be careful that they're not getting into. But if you ever have questions about what foods you can do, we have that resource. You can also always find reputable information from a couple of sources like the ASPCA, the AVMA, which is the American Veterinary Medical Association. Just if you're doing research online, make sure that you're going to credible sources. But and if you have questions, also check with your vet. But they can definitely lead you to some pet safe human foods if you want to be able to treat your pets to something special at some time.
Yeah, I think the important thing here is just to be very mindful of where you're leaving human food, making sure that it's not easily accessible, or if they do get into it, being able to confirm what they actually did eat. I mean, certainly a lot of things, if they eat a whole bunch of it, could cause some some tummy upset, some gas, maybe a little bit of bloating. So you always want to check on that. It might not necessarily be toxic, but they may not feel very good.
It might just kind of give them an upset stomach, but not be life-threatening.
Yes.
There are different kind of grades to that.
Absolutely.
But human prescription medication, that is something that is the number 2 toxin. And that is just them getting into your thing. So always make sure that you have your little medicine bottle secure. I think about that with my cat. I do. How many of you guys have a cat that anything that they can knock off that table?
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's true. You see jokes about it in comics and stuff. It's true, though. It's true. If you don't have a cat, it is true. Be careful. But think about that. They knock over any of your medications, and then it's like, oh, it's a free-for-all. So you just have to be so careful about that stuff, just like you would with children.
Absolutely.
They're gonna be curious and want to get into things. So make sure you have it tucked away into safe containers. Have your safety caps always locked and things like that.
Yep. And you think about it, pills kind of look like little treats. They're treat size.
Yeah.
They're little things that we often give our animal a little small little portion. So they see a treat and they're like, oh, is that a treat for me? Is that, or is that a pill? They don't know. So that looks very palatable to them. And so that was number 2. And number 1 is kind of similar, but it's over-the-counter medicines. So these are, things like ibuprofen and NSAIDs, things like that. What am I thinking of? Like the different supplements.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that vitamins and things would be under that.
Yeah, things that you...
Cold medicine, anything like that.
You buy it in the grocery store, in the drugstore, and we tend not to maybe store it quite so safely.
That's true. That's actually a really, really good point, because
it might be on the counter. One thing that was noted, and I think we're seeing it, this year because of being home so much, people's, you have stuff in your purse or your bag, your tote bag, a little thing of ibuprofen. I've got a little thing, if I have a headache or something like that. I have motion
sickness medication in my purse.
Yeah. So what if the purse is sitting on the counter and the dog gets in there and kind of snuffling around? What's he going to find? Is there something that all of a sudden, you realize, oh, he's just swallowed 10 of those pain those pain pills.
Absolutely.
What are you going to do? Who are you going to call? And anything like that. And certainly they can cause some pretty serious things. Damaging red blood cells, liver failure, all different sorts
scary
of different
consequences.
Things. Really scary.
Yeah.
Really scary for things that aren't necessarily something we would think of as so highly toxic that we would want to really put away.
That's crazy. I'm kind of shocked to see that Cosmetic Products is not on this list. I bet that's high. Yep. I mean, I know my dog loves, anytime I put lotions on, she always comes over and licks, so will lick my hands.
Likes that.
And she goes nuts when she sees like a chapstick or a lipstick.
Really?
So we have a big joke in my house about the lippy. But she'll go into my purse and dig and come out with like a Burt's Bees lip balm. So I'm very wary about what I put in. I don't think of it all the time, but luckily she's really good and that gets away. But if I wasn't there, while that might not hurt her, other things she might encounter in my purse might.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm just looking real quick to see. We see that we have lots of people watching. I was just looking to see really quick if there were any questions or anything. I don't see anything. Just lots of hellos and people saying that people are watching. So I just wanted to check real quick and see. But it looks like it's just kind of checking in and showing us who's here. But thank you. If you're just joining us, we're happy to be having a chance to chat with you guys about pet poison prevention. We can give you some tips. And if you see the red live, that means we're live right now. So it's Friday afternoon. But you can also, this will be archived kind of on our Facebook, so you'll be able to pull this up at any time.
Yeah. I was thinking just the other day, it's sort of, as we were kind of putting these notes together, a lot of this is just common sense and child-proofing. So if you have kids, you're doing very similar things.
Oh, absolutely.
You're just being mindful of how you're storing things that could hurt. We're all living creatures, so what could hurt a dog could possibly could hurt a child as well. So you're thinking about how you're storing things. You're thinking about what rooms they're allowed into. You're thinking about any sort of the most vulnerable. You want to toddler-proof your house. You want to also puppy and kitten-proof your house. Once you have an older cat or an older dog, they might not be quite so curious and getting into everything. but certainly new puppies and kittens.
They're exploring.
They're exploring everything.
And that's going to be, I mean, how many times have any of us been like, oh my God, where'd you get that? And then you're like, oh, wait, I didn't think to make sure I have the toiletries off the nightstand in the guest room or something, because you don't go in there. So like, just think about that, like little things.
Absolutely.
That they'd want to, that could be interesting to them, because they're exploring. That's what they do.
Everything's a toy, you know, everything's something for them to chew on or taste. They're learning about the world. And we want them to be healthy and happy while they're doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, and we talked a lot about household plants already.
Yeah.
Again, our biggest suggestion with that is just to check for those lists of pet safe plants before you're bringing things into your home, and think about if you're bringing a plant as a gift to somebody, to check in and see what they have for pets in their home, because you might not want to bring that poinsettia or that Easter lily. So definitely check into that as well.
Absolutely. And one thing on plants, you know, this was one that I didn't know of. So we have a very active foster program here at the shelter, and we had some puppies that have been out in foster, coming back for their spay and neuter surgery before going available. And one of our amazing foster families, we have our phone tree in the middle of the night if there's an emergency. And I got a call around midnight, and it was a foster family that said the puppy ate some rhododendron. He was outside in the yard going to the bathroom, and we discovered him chewing on this plant. And I was like, well, I don't know. I'm not sure about rhododendron. So
let me look that up.
Looked it up, and sure enough, it is something that can cause toxicity in pets. So they went to the emergency clinic, which is right next door to our shelter, and they had them do some activated charcoal and monitored overnight, make sure the little one had fluids. And fortunately, he was fine. But he had eaten, I think, 3 buds. And so he actually had ingested the plant, and we really needed to make sure that he wasn't going to be showing any signs of toxicity.
Scary. It's scary.
Really scary. And none of us, the fosters, myself, knew that rhododendron was indeed something that can be toxic. And I know I have those growing in my yard. Yeah. So, you know,
we have some, I don't think my dog could really get to them because they're like at the top of a rock wall. Okay. But we have them in our yard as well. Yeah. They're really common here. So
not just house plants, but just what's growing outside in your yard, in a place you're visiting, you know, being mindful of especially what your dog is eating.
Yeah. Well, something else we touched on a little bit of like household products and cleaning and things, but something I'm shocked that this wasn't on there as well is essential oils.
Yes.
That's kind of like a buzz thing. Like you hear a lot about that now, more than you used to. But there are a lot of those diffusers. Yeah. They do have pet safe diffusers. Yep. So don't get confused with that. But those essential oil diffusers that you can get just to put fragrance and scents for, you know, promoting relaxation things. Yep. Those can be very toxic to your pets, especially to cats, is what I believe. I haven't done any scientific training on this myself. But definitely those concentrated essential oils can be very dangerous to your pets. Yeah. So you should always be checking the packaging, but also chatting with your vet if there's something that you want to introduce into your home and you're not sure and you're questioning it. Like if you question it, do the research. Talk to your vet. Yeah. Find a reputable online source, and do your best to make sure that you're just not having anything that would be harmful to your pets. Absolutely. Or having it in a space where they cannot access it. Yeah.
You know, I mean, using it in a room that they're not in, you know, certainly can be something available. Or, you know, making sure that it is, there's all kinds of essential oils. Some are more toxic to animals and some are perfectly safe, depending on the concentration. So when it's in a diffuser, if it's in like a carrier oil, some are fine. Others you never want to use around animals, like tea tree, I think, and eucalyptus might be another one. So, you know, you definitely want to check it out, as Shannon said, and really get to know what is usable and not around animals. And it's just a good common sense rule to, you know, to use it in rooms that they're not living in. One other note is any pets that have breathing difficulties, like if they've got, you know, some sort of medical condition, shouldn't be using fragrance, aerosols, those sort of diffusers with them. And also definitely not with birds. So if you have pet birds in your home, they're very, very susceptible to breathing in things and causing major issues. So if you've got parakeets or, cockatiels or whatever, don't use any of those scents in your home, because they can definitely get ill or even die.
Absolutely.
From those.
So I did see a question. Patricia asked if we could give the number for the pet poison helpline. I know we're going to mention that again at the end, and we are going to do a description on the video, and we'll tag that down in the comments. But if you are ever unsure and need advice about a toxin that you think your pet got, there is the 24-hour, 7-day-a-week pet poison prevention line. So the ASPCA Animal Poison Control Center, their phone number is 1-888-426-4435. They also have a free mobile app now. And if you call that number, one thing to know is, depending on the situation you're dealing with, there may be a consultation fee. From what I understand, that's not always the case. It's going to depend on what they have to do with you. But that does help support that. So it's available for pet owners all the time. So we'll give that number again at the end of the video of the live, and tag that in the comments as well.
And things like if you can hop online with the mobile app or just on their website, you might be able to screen things yourself. Like if you know your pet ate a plant and you know what the plant was, you can look through their list and realize, oh, that says it's perfectly safe. You can kind of clear up your question that way without having to call.
Right.
But it's good to have the number there, especially when you don't know.
Absolutely.
Now, one thing I wanted to mention, and I'm actually interested that this wasn't on the list either, unless they're maybe including it in household products, which is a possibility. But I know the big one is antifreeze. It used to be such a big thing.
You just hear about that all the time.
Hear about it all the time. And I remember I was working on, my prior job, I worked for the Humane Society of the United States, and I was working on legislation to get bittering agent added to antifreeze. And it was much more complicated than you would expect, but it depended upon, 50-gallon drums at places like Prompto or, Midas, the places that are doing a lot of changes of oil and things like that. There's different regulations for that versus what you can buy on the shelf at the typical store. But for the most part, most antifreeze now has the bittering agent added to it. So it's no longer as palatable as it used to be, because it was very sweet, and you would hear dogs, cats, kids drinking it out of puddles or drinking it out of a spilled container. And now with the bittering, for the most part, it's not as much of a problem, but I believe there can still be some product sold that does not have the bittering agent in it. So it's still something to be aware of, even though it's not quite as vital of an issue anymore.
And you might have a pet that likes a bitter, just like humans have different taste buds. The bittering agent might not be as effective for your pet. So definitely chat about that. When I was on WIGY earlier in the week talking about similar topics, Mark mentioned that. He was like, oh, you used to hear about antifreeze all the time. And we kind of talked about that, because it's just so obviously the legislation you worked on helped, because that is something that we just don't hear about really as much as we used to.
And fortunately, because it used to be a really big thing, especially with a lot more people used to change their own car fluids in their yard. And so you'd have the puddles, you'd spill a little bit and it would be there. We don't see that as much anymore, but if an animal's hanging out around one of the places that commonly does it, you want to be aware of what they're getting into for sure.
Absolutely. And that's just another thing. Always, the best thing that you can do is always be aware, whether it's where your pets are going, what's around your house, what you have in the yard, just keeping yourself kind of in the know about what's going on with your pet and what's around your home and where your pet's going to be. That's really the biggest prevention step you can take.
Absolutely. So why don't we talk a little bit about kind of what to do, what to recognize, what to think about. And I know the number one thing to think about, and we think about this with disaster planning, we thought about this with the pandemic, is having a plan or having a kit. So knowing, okay, if I needed to rush out the door at 2 a.m. to go to the e-clinic because my cat ate a lily. Say I had someone gave me a lily, I had it in the house, and she got into it. Do I have a carrier? ready to go and easy to find? Do I have a towel to wrap her in? Do I have, just the basic stuff? Do I have a list of what medication she's on? So the veterinarian will know that. Do I know where the emergency clinic is? Where would I go? Do I have that? So it's having a plan and just thinking, okay, if there was a problem, what would I do? How would I handle it? Absolutely. Do you have like an emergency kit or a first aid kit or anything at home for your little?
We do. Yeah. We have it with right under our sink with our fire extinguisher and things. We have a thing with important numbers, and we also have a pet safety kit there.
That's great.
And you can buy pre-made kits for pets if you want. Like, that's something that, so April, this is Pet Poison Prevention Month.
Yeah.
And April is like emergency pet month.
Okay.
I don't know the exact terminology.
Yeah.
We'll get that down.
Yeah.
But we'll be putting together some handouts and stuff to add to our website about how to fashion your own like emergency kit. But along with that is making sure, like Katie said, like a carrier, like if you had an emergency, you had to run out the door, what do you need? Like what's your like, almost thinking like if you were having a baby and you had your to-go bag to go when you're in labor, you need something like that for your pet ready to go. But with the poison thing, I think a lot of times people will be thinking about what information you're going to need. So even just a reminder to yourself, like put that in your little kit with the number is what are they going to ask? They're going to ask what kind of dog, how much does it weigh, what's any symptoms it's having. If you know what it was exposed to, how much of that they were exposed to, when did it happen? Like they ate this 20 minutes ago versus they ate it 2 hours ago. Any of that information is going to be really important. So I would suggest with your like emergency kit to have like a little reminder card, because in that moment you're going to be like, what do I do? What do I do? Here's my pet that's in turmoil and distress. So reminding yourself of all that information they're going to need is going to be really helpful.
Absolutely. And I think, there's certain, now if you know that your pet ate something and you know that it was toxic, don't wait to see what the symptoms are. But if you're not sure, and sometimes we don't know, they could have gotten into something. I was in the other room. I walked back out. Something a little suspicious happened, but I don't know what happened. They got into something, it looks like they were eating something, but I have no clue what it was or what they did. Then I'm going to start watching them and keeping an eye and seeing if I start to see any physical signs. And one of them, classic, is vomiting. Sometimes diarrhea, but kind of that GI, drooling, lots of hypersalivation, or
they're not eating. Yeah, that's something I've noticed too. I think that the not eating thing is a big clue, just in general when your pet's not feeling well.
Yeah.
But it's just like sometimes you have to kind of play detective and try to figure these things out. So knowing what some of those symptoms are is really helpful. But the not, they can't really tell you if they're nauseous. I wish it'd be nice if they could. It really, I mean, that would be easy.
More than likely, you'll see them not eating.
Yeah,
so it kind
coughing,
of goes hand in hand.
like. Even if you think about like a human, like if they get something, maybe they have like a catch in their throat. Like if they're coughing, their heart rate's up, they're acting kind of weak. There's all sorts of kind of physical triggers that they might give off. So just kind of monitoring them for that kind of stuff. But like what Katie said, if you know they got into something or you have a strong suspicion, like, and you think your pet needs medical help, do not wait. There always is in the emergency vet if it's not during business hours or it's overnight, that kind of thing. So just definitely always make sure you're looking out for them.
And there can be longer term things, if you didn't catch it and it's been, 24 hours since they ate something, if you're starting to see problems with urination or, excessive thirst, if you're seeing things like certainly anything with blood, coughing up blood, vomiting blood, they just seem to have no energy. These are very serious things that you want to be on the phone.
A change in their stool. It might not be diarrhea, but it might be discolored. It might, we at the shelter, we talk about poop a lot, guys. Sorry.
We do.
It just is the way, but just any kind of change in the consistency, things like that you're seeing that is alarming to you or just concerning. At minimum, chatting with your vet about it. Anytime you're seeing something like that, but certainly if you have a suspicion about them ingesting something, it's always a bigger concern.
We have a joke in my household because my husband wants to help and, take on chores and tasks, things around the house. And so he's like, oh, well, you scooped the cat litter boxes again. Why didn't you let me do that? And what I always say is, no, I like doing it. And I actually do because I'm keeping an eye on what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. It tells you a lot. It really does.
It really, really does. And it sounds gross. And other people are like, that's weird. But I know their routine. And I know if all of a sudden there's a lot more urine than there should be, I'm going to be concerned. Or if there's diarrhea, I want to be on top of that and aware. So I'm like, no, it's fine. I like doing it. I want to know.
We have a joke in my house, and I won't say the brand and stuff but we switched my dog to a different dog food, and one of its attributes is like it produces quality poops.
Oh,
and so now we have we cheer my dog. We're like, look at your little quality poop, and it's just like our family's kind of joke now. So we all have something like that in our families.
Yeah, but it is all joking aside, being very aware of how your pet acts. What it's normal, like kind of what's that baseline?
Yeah.
And anything outside of ordinary, you want to pay attention to and have it looked at.
Yeah. No, there's so many things that your pet can get into. And it's nerve wracking. It's like having a child. I don't have human children. I just have my little fur babies, and it is, they give you those emotions and those worries, and it can be very, very traumatic.
Absolutely.
But if you guys ever have questions about things, definitely you can reach out to us, give us a call, reach out to us on Facebook. We have lots of resources, as I mentioned, on our page. We're going to be constantly adding to those. We are going to get something up about creating your emergency kit for your pets, like a first aid kit. And we will have all of the information for the ASPCA hotline, the pet poison hotline, and information tagged in this live. You'll see that in the comments and description. And again, it's make sure to have your vet's information and your local emergency clinic. I think every kind of geographical area will have an emergency clinic that services them. We're lucky being in Lewiston and Auburn. We have the emergency clinic that's right here next to us on Strawberry Ave in Lewiston. But just making sure you know of what those resources are.
Absolutely. You have it at your fingertips so that when something bad happens, you're not having to scramble and panic and try to find it. Okay, I call this number. Here's this helpline. I know where to go. It's going to just ease your mind so much when you're in that scary situation. And something that you mentioned earlier, I think is really important. So, with the emergency clinics, we know because we drive by the emergency clinic every day, and they are busy. They're busy, busy, busy whenever they're open. So right now with the pandemic, everyone is staying outside in their cars, but they kind of take clients in as the emergency warrants.
They triage, like the human emergency room.
They exactly do. So if you have good information when you're calling and saying, I know that my cat ate a whole lily bud, they're going to when you get there or they recognize you're in the parking lot, they're coming out and getting your kitty immediately.
Yeah,
versus someone who, maybe has a little bit of,
my dog's limping, but he's not in pain.
Right. So they're going to triage, and if you can provide them that really important info of what they ate, how much they ate, when they did it, it really matters because you don't want to be sitting there waiting because you didn't communicate.
Time is of the essence.
Absolutely.
Time is of the essence.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So again, I'll say that number one more time for the ASPCA hotline, and then, like I said, we will get that added into the notes down below. But the ASPCA Poison Control Center, Animal Poison Control Center, is 1-888-426-4435, and they are open 24/7. So anytime that you need help, and our local animal emergency clinic is the Animal Emergency Clinic of Mid-Maine. They can be reached at 777-1110. It is important to note that they're open when other vets are not. So they are closed. They open at 5 p.m. in the evening during the week, and they're open until 8 a.m. the following morning. Then they're open from 5 o'clock Friday night until 8 a.m. Monday morning. So they're open all weekend. So they're essentially open non-traditional business hours.
Yeah.
We have people all the time that come into the shelter and say, I went next door and it's closed. I'm like, well, that's because they're the emergency clinic. Even UPS does it.
Yep, they do. Right, turn to deliver.
But just to remember that resource is not available during traditional Monday through Friday business hours. That is kind of the after hours thing. But definitely make sure to have your veterinarian's information handy.
Absolutely. Yeah, we wish you all the best as you navigate pet poison. Hopefully you never have to deal with this.
Absolutely.
But if you do, having a plan and just having thought about this in advance can really go a long way to kind of keeping your sanity and getting your pet the care that he or she needs.
Absolutely. Yeah. And make sure to like and follow our Facebook page if you're not already. Yeah. If you're seeing this video, you probably do already.
Right.
Because you're seeing it. But make sure to like and follow us. Every week on Tuesdays, we put up pet tips. And when we have important information to share with you guys, like updates to information put out by the ASPCA and other reputable sources, we're going to be sharing that with you. So make sure to like and follow us there and on Instagram as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a great day.